When we struggle with codependency, or we were raised in a household where this was happening, it can be hard for us to get out of this pattern of behavior, which is why today we are going to talk about the 7 ways we can heal from codependency. Codependency is when we are in an unbalanced relationship. One person's behavior helps support another person's self-destructive behavior. Usually people talk about this as it applies to addiction, but it can also happen in relationships where one person is emotionally immature, irresponsible, or has a mental illness that they aren't caring for. I heard codependency once described as one person has an addiction to a substance or thing, and the other person is addicted to caring for them. And that pretty much sums it up. Starting off with number 7, we will need to untangle ourselves from other people. Do we spend all of our time with one person? Maybe we struggle to make any decision without asking someone for their thoughts or advice on it first. Do we feel like we're walking on eggshells around those we're closest to, or trying to do everything perfectly so that we don't stress them out or upset them? In order to do any of this work, we are going to have to put some healthy space between us and those we're in relationships with. Because unfortunately, when we struggle with codependency, it usually finds its way into all of our relationships. So stepping away for a bit to assess and adjust is going to be a really important step. Number 6, we will need to communicate with our partner or friend about the changes that we're going to try and make. If we're going to work to change the rules of how we interact with others, we need to let them know first. I know it's hard to have these kinds of conversations, but it could be saying something as simple as, I've been telling you, I'm trying to work on myself. And in doing that, I realize that I'm not the best with boundaries in my relationships. So I'm going to be trying to improve that. And I promise to explain as much as I can as I work through it. We can also tell them that it's okay to ask questions or express any concerns that they have while we're doing this work, right? Overall, this is going to be great practice for us and will ensure that we don't accidentally damage any important relationships in our life while we work to change. The 5th way to heal is to begin to understand boundaries and how to put them in place. Boundaries are important so that others know how to treat us and we know how to treat them. They ensure each relationship is healthy and respectful. When we're codependent, we often don't have any real independence. And so we can think that by telling someone no or not being able to do everything someone asks of us, that we're being selfish, or that boundaries only exist in all or nothing terms, like it's either all about them or it's all about us. But healthy boundaries are not so extreme. They are there so that we can take care of ourselves. And by doing that, we will be able to be there for our loved ones when they need it. Like putting these in place in all of our relationships is going to be key to healing from codependency. Moving on to number 4, we will need to be a detective for our patterns. Just like everything in life, codependency is going to look different for each and every one of us. Some of us may find it applies to our friendships, and those relationships being all give without getting anything back. Others of us may find that it applies exclusively to our romantic relationships and us being attracted to people who seem to need us or make us feel like we have a purpose. Whatever it is, it's important to figure out our pattern so that we can more easily identify ways that codependency is affecting us and our relationships. So start noticing the ways that you put others first or fixate on others versus focusing on yourself, and just see what you find out. Remember, we have to be curious, not judgmental as we work through this. Number 3, get to know yourself. This takes time. Often when we've been codependent for a long time, possibly our whole lives, we may not know what we like, don't like. And making decisions about these things can feel impossible because we never had the chance or gave ourselves a chance because we're too busy focusing on someone else. So try things out. Try new music, movies you've never seen or thought you didn't like I don't like horror films or I don't really like rom-coms. Watch them, find out. Try new food, activities, whatever you can think of. Give yourself a chance to try it. See if you like it. And if not, go ahead and move on and try something else. But give yourself the time to try new things. It's okay to not be good at it, or not know what works or what you like or don't like. It's like we have to give ourselves a chance to learn and make decisions on our own. And since that can be so incredibly foreign, be patient and kind with yourself. We could also feel the need to do everything perfectly as a side effect of our codependency. So do your best to give yourself permission to do things incorrectly or wrong, because that's really part of learning and growing. Number 2, we're going to check our facts. Unfortunately, one of the side effects of codependency is that we look to other people to validate who we are, or that we're doing things right. And therefore, we can constantly judge ourselves, assume others are judging us too, and that they don't like us or that we're doing something wrong, which is why we need to check our facts on these thoughts. Instead of letting them live in our heads, assuming that they're true and continuing to think them. Thoughts are just thoughts. Remember that. And having a thought more than once doesn't make it a fact. So pay attention to what you say to yourself about yourself and check your facts on it. I know, this sounds incredibly tedious. So start with your top 5 most common judgy thoughts and see if you have any facts that can back them up. Facts, remember, not thoughts. Because chances are we don't have any that back them up. And then maybe consider what the facts actually do support. You might be surprised by what you find out. And finally, number 1, give therapy a try. I know it's hard to reach out and speak up about something that we're struggling with, let alone to talk to a stranger about it. But trust me when I tell you, it can change your life. Yes, behavior change is hard, and it can feel like it's just going against every fiber of our being, which is why it's important to work with a therapist so that they can help you push through that discomfort and be a safe person to check in with as we try those new things, and encourage us when we need it along the way. If therapy isn't available, or maybe it's not affordable for you, there is such a thing as Codependence Anonymous, and it's free, online or in person, and it could be a great option for support and understanding. And it is important to know that things like AA, NA, or CA, Codependence Anonymous, are peer support, meaning that it's not led or supported by licensed professionals. Now, that doesn't make it better or worse. It's just something to know, because I've always believed that if something helps us, that's all that matters. So find what works for you and get that extra support. Oh, and I almost forgot, another key part of healing from codependency is going to be improving our self-care. I know, we hear that word all the time, and self-care we can think has to look like vacations or expensive massages or facials. That's not what I'm talking about. We do need to prioritize our basic needs. You know that HALT I talk about all the time, hungry, angry, lonely, tired? Well, we need to look into those things, as well as taking our medication as prescribed or treating any illness we may have. Because when we're codependent, we put other people first, right? Remember what I said at the beginning, that they have an addiction to a thing or a substance, and our addiction is like making their life okay and keeping them going. Our addiction is them. Meaning that we're not putting any effort or any purpose, any focus on ourselves. And so a huge part of this is going to be putting some of that focus onto ourselves. And it's going to feel uncomfortable, and we're going to think we're being really selfish, or we're not putting other people first like we used to. So we're going to think we're bad, right? We can have some shame, blame, guilt, or embarrassment thoughts that come up as we do this. But I just encourage you to put that part of yourself and part of your work as a priority. I remember years ago, a friend of mine had said that they put their self-care in their calendar and make it non-negotiable. I encourage you to do this, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe that means that we get up a little earlier. I'm not a morning person either, but we spend a little time journaling about what's coming up for us, or doing some of the other work that I mentioned in the video. There's a lot of ways that we can prioritize ourselves, because even if we have to negotiate with our codependent self, we could say something like, if I plan to help other people, I can't pour from an empty pitcher, right? We need to fill ourselves up first. And so I believe that the self-care component is going to be key as we try out any of the other ways that I mentioned. So just keep that in mind. Are we eating regularly, giving ourselves an opportunity to get enough sleep? Do we need to make an appointment to see our doctor, maybe get a physical, maybe finally get that ache, pain, itch in our throat looked at and taken care of? Maybe we need to prioritize taking a day off, walking around our town, connecting with people, right? What does self-care look like for you? It doesn't have to be expensive or take a ton of time. It can if we want it to, but consider and maybe even share in the comments some ways that you take care of yourself on the regular. One of the ways that I do is I make time for stretching. I know, sounds kind of weird, but it is it. And I make sure that I eat every 3 to 4 hours. It's just the way that I take care of my body. I also drink a lot of water. That's another one. And as much as possible, which I'm really struggling with this lately, is I make sure that I set aside enough time for sleep. I try to get into bed, giving myself like the 8 to 9 hours I know I need. But what are some things you do? Feel free to share. Overall, remember that healing from codependency isn't all or nothing. We are hoping to make progress little by little and slowly change our patterns of behavior. Being able to do more of these things in our life is really the end goal. Even if it's just every other time or once every 5 times we encounter a trigger. So do your best to be compassionate with yourself and your progress. It can and will get better, I promise. And as always, feel free to share anything that has helped you or thoughts that you have about codependency in those comments down below. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.